I think you can get to really good places while giving yourself space to be okay with making mistakes and not being perfect, and actually embracing the things that that are about you that are not perfect. Being defined by perfectionism or perfect obedience or whatever, I think sometimes takes your eyes off of the aim of what this life is all about. And you get so focused on a destination or what other people think that you then have to say, well, why am I doing this thing? Is my heart in the right spot?
Welcome to Elevate Utah,
Utah's #1 growth podcast.
I'm Court Brady.
I am Carlos Souza.
And today we have Vess Pearson on the podcast with us.
Good job, guys. That was solid. Well done.
It's a lot of takes. We won't need to retake that one. We got on the first. Introduction to Vess. You're co-founder and CEO at Aptive, which is cool to find a little bit of this out because Aptive's grown quite a bit since I left. 4th largest pest control company in North America. Over $400 million in annual revenue.
500 million.
500 million. Need to update your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
441 on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So 500 million in revenue.
Wow.
Glassdoor's 100 best places to work, Inc. 500 fastest growing companies, and it's been highlighted in Entrepreneur Magazine Best Companies in America. You personally are the 2021 EY Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yes.
And a couple other things I know about you. You serve in your community. You help church members with funerals. You facilitate weddings. You're present for your family. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast since day one when we first had it. Carlos and I went through who would be, Ryan Smith would be amazing to have. Vess Pearson would be amazing to have. And we knew we needed to get a couple reps under our belts before we had you on. So we're into year 2 now, and you're one of our first ones of year 2.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining. A couple other things about you, Vess. I'm going to embarrass you for a second. I've been blessed with tons of amazing leaders in my life. You may be the best leader I ever had. And I don't mean that, I don't say that lightly. I've had phenomenal mission presidents, leaders, and I tried to digest and break that down of why you were such a good leader from my perspective. And one of the first is trust. You had lots of opportunities. You had a lot of reps that pay was always 6 months later than when the work was put in. And there were a lot of opportunities in the industry, a lot of times where pay didn't actually equal what was promised up front. And after a couple of summers, that fear went away, and I'm guessing that fear went away for all the reps that worked with you guys. So tons of trust. The next thing I thought of why is Vess such a great leader is people that strap their wagon to you know that you are going to will success into reality. They just know Vess is going to make this happen. And I think that enabled you to recruit a lot of other phenomenal leaders and create a lot of other phenomenal leaders because they knew that this engine, this vehicle is going to lead to success because you were leading it. And then the last one, the phrase that came to mind was energy management. And I think that phrase came to mind because of I remember we had some hard negotiations that probably never stopped. And I wasn't one of the only ones that you were having hard negotiations with. But your ability to pick and choose the battles that you're going to have, and then to hear things and say, I am going to choose to put energy behind that and make this something bigger to excite the team and to get people motivated, or to hear something and instead of countering with the same energy that it came at you with, to be able to just make it dissipate by allowing it to happen and answering the question or asking the question in a different way. Was phenomenal. So grace under pressure. You managed a lot of alpha males and a lot of amounts of money and made some big decisions. And I see you as someone with grace under pressure. So that's the longest intro we've ever had, but I've been wanting to say all that to you for a few years.
I'll just say thank you. That means that really means something coming from you, Cortland. And I will say now you talk about me. as well, Carlos. That was fun. Just kidding.
I have some stuff that I can go through.
I'm playing. Thank you though very much.
One of the quotes that you would always say, I don't know if you always said it, but stood out to me as pressure is a privilege. And I've thought about that a lot in leaving Aptive, having that be such a springboard and choosing a lot more. I felt like I already had a lot of pressure and chosen to even more, and thought often about that quote.
I mean, you've been courageous to leave a job that you were doing really, really good at and had a future in, to say, you know what, like, I think there's something different for me that's maybe bigger and better, and to be willing to take the risk. It's pretty awesome.
It's been a fun, amazing journey.
Yeah.
Such a fun journey. We're going to talk about your journey, Vess. We shot you a text and said, we always talk about a principle you're passionate about or something you feel expert in. And I know you're expert in a lot of things. You didn't give us any of the things you're expert in, which would have been fun to talk about, but you did give us a few principles. So failure is the greatest teacher. Thoughts on a balanced life or balance in general. And then defining success. What is success? We'll talk about those, and then we will also ask you, as we do at the end of every episode, what advice you would give to your earlier self. First, before we go in, man, you guys just had an exit.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I would call it more of a springboard.
A springboard. A capital
transition.
event.
Yeah, a capital event. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you ever think you'd actually be here, or is it surreal?
No, I for sure thought that we would get there. Business is always hard. So you have to figure out, okay, can I generate revenue? And then once you can generate revenue, that's pretty good. But then you got to go to, can I actually produce EBITDA? That's really hard. Can I build a real business that doesn't just create revenue, but when you are actually growing, can you have something at the end? That's really hard. The hardest of all of it might be, though, can I figure out how to get liquidity out of a business? You'd think that if you can drive revenue and drive EBITDA, that liquidity would be easy, but it's not. That's actually really, really hard. Why is liquidity important? Well, if you're like Aptive and you are 30% owned by your employees, the only way to really make that worth something to them is to figure out a liquidity event. And we were able to do that. So we're super grateful.
It's funny hearing you say EBITDA. Funny hearing Garrett Myers say CAC. He said, how do I get more of that CAC?
You want to decrease the CAC, yes.
The reps want more of that CAC. The business wants to decrease that CAC. But none of those phrases were used when I was at door-to-door sales. It was contract value and number of sales, and you guys have it. It's fun to hear EBITDA, customer acquisition costs, liquidity. Vess, I'm so curious. This question has perplexed me, and I think I know the answer because I know you a little bit. But I just want to start with why. I remember when we switched from Altera to Aptive, and you spoke to the leaders in the company that morning, and you said, guys, I want you to know I just got a 7-figure, hopefully I can show this, we were under an NDA for that conversation, but I got a 7-figure offer, and my guess, looking back, was multiple 7 figures to leave Altera that was transitioning into Aptive and go to another door-to-door company. At that time, I know the path hadn't been easy up till then. You'd already done some cycles. You guys had Eco first, and then Altera, and then we're transitioning to Aptive. Your boy had swallowed Drano.
The equivalent, something like that, yeah.
You guys were, I remember just all...
Callus remover. So not Drano, but what you use to remove a callus.
How old was he?
11 months when that happened, yeah.
And you had already done what anyone would in their right mind would say, like, you've been successful, you've already put in the reps, your family suffered, you've suffered, and now you have this opportunity. And I'm sure that wasn't the only opportunity you've had to exit or to take significant chips off the table. But yet you've pushed to where you've pushed. And I'm curious why.
Well, I mean, going and doing something else, although there was big money involved, my core competency was in this space. And I had the hearts of all of the people in this space. So for me, it might seem like an act of a big act of faith to reject that other deal, but honestly, I felt like I was doing the safer thing, staying in a space that I really, really knew, surrounded by really good people. And then I just knew we could go much bigger than we had, before. And yet that other deal was not an equity type deal. It was just like a cash deal. So with an equity deal, I knew that my upside could also be much greater than that other deal as well. So
you said that you knew that it could be much bigger with Aptive. How come? What made you? How did you know, or what gave you that confidence?
With all due respect to our competitors, looking around the landscape and saying, well, if they've been able to build these types of businesses in a space that I feel like I'm really good at, I know I can do it too. I just need some more time to be able to go in and pull it off. I knew from a sales standpoint, I had all of the right people on the bus. What's been fun the last decade, though, is building the rest of the business out, the rest of the platform, everything from finance to strategy to ops to HR to technology, to build a real business that wasn't just competent in selling, but that was incompetent in employee experience, customer experience, could scale in a way that grew revenue, but that still grew EBITDA, that understood the market, that understood digital marketing. And we had grown Altera as kind of a one-trick pony. So what could we do if we actually build out all of those other functions as well? So that's why I had, belief that we could go to another level.
So I want to ask the question in a different way. There are significant diminishing marginal returns after you've hit a certain personal financial benchmark. I feel like you've pushed significantly beyond that, and that's the crux of my question. Why? How many years have you been at this? 18 years?
18 years, yeah.
18 years. So why did you pull it at year 9 or 12 or 15?
Oh, well, I'm a young person. I feel like you got to do something. I certainly have always wanted my kids, and I still want them to see me go to work and do really hard things. But something that people might not know about the recent transaction is we just paid out over $100 million to employees. That's pretty remarkable given how small Utah is. And so you can't make that type of impact in many places. And that was the plan from day one when we started Aptive, was that our people would own a big part of it. So we don't, scream it from the rooftops. But I also think it's great for Aptive to get credit for, that impact back into the community. So
when you started, I'm curious, you said defining success, or what is success? What was your definition of success when you first came out of college, and how has that evolved to what it is now?
Success was, you got to do well in school. You got to get a good job. You're going to build a great family, and you climb the corporate ladder or whatever, which those are all really, really good things. Success, though, now is it's a direction. It's not necessarily a destination. It's so much more than, when I do these things, I'm going to end up here. And so that's how it'd be different now versus, out of college for me.
I love talking to a mutual friend, Nate Harris.
Yeah, Nate is amazing.
Redefining success in those conversations would echo your words for sure. It's changed from a destination to, what do I do on a daily basis? What attributes do I show up with?
Yeah.
All right. Next thing you add is failure is your biggest teacher. Why not just say an experience? Why failure in particular?
Well, we just got done talking about this, transaction we did with Citation, who's been great, by the way. But I would have never gotten this deal done in late 24 had I not failed in 21. And I've talked about this in other public forums or other podcasts, but we ran a sale process. And a sale process is a tremendous amount of work, like a tremendous amount of work. We're talking months and months and months, and you tax your team and you tax the bankers and you do all of these meetings. It's very, very emotional. You get everyone excited because generally at the end of a sale process is a liquidity event. And we got to the end of that and there were no buyers. Crazy. I'm like, man, we get all of this praise and you're so wonderful, and nobody was interested. But because of that process, I learned a host of things that we had to do differently to get people interested. And I just had we not gone through that, then we would have never got the deal done in 24. I absolutely had to fail. It was very disappointing, discouraging, hard, let a lot of people down. It was also required for us to do what we just, were able to do.
How did you get through that? And what advice do you have for somebody that is just on the other side of a big failure?
Well, when you think about success or happiness, when you can get your mind in the mindset of everything that happens to me can actually be for my good and to my benefit, because I am learning, I am growing, and I am just finding tremendous joy in just that process, then it's easy to get through. It's not hard because you're growing. So when you can focus on, hey, my trial is for my good, then you can get through it pretty easily. I mean, on somewhat of a, Judeo-Christian, thinking, the word grace is like power from God, goodness from God. Whether or not you believe in like the Judeo-Christian, Christ, or just some other great energy, I don't think it actually matters. Grace is like enabling a power from above. Well, justice, which is what we think of when we like get in trouble, can actually also be grace, because if it comes from a God that loves you, then justice is given to you because you need it. Well, if you need something, and if it's going to make you better, well, then that's an act of grace. So the justice that I received from a failed sale process was actually grace given to me, because without justice of failing and without the market saying, hey, you're messed up here, I would have never got the job done.
I want to double click on that and ask a follow-up question on, as you're going through that process and the end of the process is failure. I sit in meetings, and you also mentioned that it's a very emotional process. What's your advice? How do you separate your value as a person from the business? I just feel like a lot of people can't separate those two things, and a failure causes them to a failure in business causes them to lose confidence in themselves, and they feel like a failure as a person. How do you separate those two things?
You got to detach the results from where your heart is and from where your effort's been. There's plenty of things that 100% I would fail at trying to. I have a silly goal right now to run a 400 meter in a minute. That's actually not impressive if you are an Olympic, athlete. They're running it in like 42, 43, 44, something like that. But almost a 41-year-old man, it gives me a reason to sprint, keep the body limber. If I fail though at that, say that I just never get to a minute, but I get to 105, who cares? Like, I was trying to do something really good for my body. It got me out. I was training, made me healthier, gave me a goal, something fun to talk about. And so I just go back to, we have to detach the end result from what actually success or happiness is predicated by.
Which kind of goes back to what you're saying, that success is in the direction, not the destination.
Exactly. And it's also, where is your heart? Where are your intentions? Where was your effort? How did you treat other people? If you can give good answers to all of those things, okay, I didn't get the 400 in a minute, but man, there was a whole bunch of other super cool outputs that I got along the way. And by the way, this type of thinking is new for me, because I was very focused on the destination for a super long time. And there are some benefits to that, but there's casualties as well.
I was going to ask you if this is always your natural disposition, or if this was something learned.
Completely learned.
I'm curious of what was the driver to the learning and the switch that made you decide to view things this way.
So Arthur Brooks, I mean, I've got to admit that almost none of my thoughts are just unique to me. I've learned them from somebody else. Arthur Brooks is someone that I really enjoy. Adam Silver was the not Adam Silver. Adam Smith. Anyway, we'll get the name right. You can put a little tag in there. But he taught me this principle of grace and justice. And so it's been along the way, Cortland. I wouldn't say it's an event. I would say it's maturing as a human being. It's realizing that what society calls awesome, which is generally like fame, power, and wealth, like deity, like sees it totally different. So trying to like more get in line with what like a deity would consider awesome and not what the world would consider awesome. So I think that's what kind of has informed it.
Do you ever think that, did you have a failure in Aptive or Altera where you thought, this is the end for me, like this is too much for me to handle, I'm out? Or this is the end of the company, like we are out? Before you answer,
never. No. Sorry. No. But that doesn't mean that there aren't moments of, some trepidation and fear. I certainly had moments where I needed to raise tens of millions of dollars in weeks. Most people would look at that and say, or some people might look at that and say, it's just too big of a mountain to climb. I think sometimes I'm blessed with a stupid confidence of, no, let's just go. That this will be a fun challenge.
It's funny that you say that. I think this is episode 59 or 60, and we probably have had at least 5 to 10 people who said the same thing, that I was blessed with ignorance, or I was blessed with this, this is the superpower of an entrepreneur, is to be ignorant, or have that optimism, or I'm very curious on that's just a comment. It's just interesting that you mentioned that, because we've had so many people who said the same thing.
Vess, tell me your thoughts on balance. You have a great relationship with God. Just in this conversation, it seems that way. Your family, I've seen your posts about soccer games and your wife and your kids, and you've had financial success. And I think most people, for sure me, I thought those things were fairly mutually exclusive. Pick one, maybe two, but not three. Can you talk about that?
a work-life balance, I think, is just a really stupid phrase. Just balance in general, in the sense of, hey, I am trying to put equal amounts of time into all the things that matter to me. To me, that is very, very challenging and a bit idealistic. If you are in medical school and you are trying to become an outstanding doctor, 8 hours a day does not cut it. If you are trying to be a professional soccer player, every once in a while doesn't cut it. It's got to be every single day. And so I just have this really core belief that imbalance is actually what helps achievement. Now, you get to decide what achievement is. Achievement can be a whole host of things. And as we learned from Nate, you get to decide what your personal virtues are and what matters to you. And then be loyal to them. But don't be loyal to the idea of, I need to put equal amounts of time into everything. Now, that said, you certainly need some non-negotiables. And I hope that you would have non-negotiables, because if you are in medical school or dental school, or you're trying to be a professional athlete, and you have a 6-year-old, there's only one time where they have their first basketball game. If you have a spouse and you believe that she's the most important thing in your world, and she gets none of your time, that's a pretty tough sale to make. So you figure out what are your non-negotiables, and then you're perfectly okay with being imbalanced at certain parts of your life. I like to think of it too, that we're really after more of a balanced lifetime, that there's a time and a season for things. And if you play your cards right, you'll be able to put the appropriate amount of time into the buckets that you need to put it into to achieve what you're after, but over a lifetime.
Can we unravel this a little bit? I just want to,
Yeah.
If we could ask some personal questions, what are your non-negotiables with your wife, your kids, God, and health?
So I definitely want to make time to serve. If professional endeavor completely overshadows the ability to serve, well then I've put too much into that, professional bucket. That said, there's going to be times in life where your ability to serve, whether in your church or your community or whatever, is going to be less because you're working more. But time to serve, I want some time for that. A very practical one that I've talked about before is I love going to the kids' events, and that's Harper's Dance and the boys' sports or their school programs. So I don't miss those. Exercise is a non-negotiable for me. It's not a vanity thing. It's a mental health thing that I am just so much more happy and productive if I exercise, and I'm much less tired. Bedtime, it's pretty rare that I'm just gonna just kind of say, hey, Ange, bedtime is yours. And if I did just say that, I might not have a wife for very long. But, I've done a decent job at bedtime. And so those are just a few, kind of practical non-negotiables for me.
How old are your kids?
13, 11, 7, and 5.
Okay, I want to go one level deeper. There's a Tony Robbins quote that he said, everyone wants what I have, but no one wants to do what I've done. And I just want you to put it in perspective for somebody who's starting off on their journey and they want to build something great like you guys have at Aptive, or even build something a portion of the size. Can you tell us about some of the trade-offs that your families had to make?
Oh, yeah. We never had family dinner, ever. Maybe on a Sunday. And I mean, I'm sure there's book after book after book says you got to eat as a family. It's not a bad thing. I'm definitely a proponent of it, but that was a sacrifice that we made. Along with that, I remember there was a point in my career where in my brain, I legitimately thought that 5 p.m. was the middle of the day. And that hit me one day because I actually was home at 5 p.m. and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got like so much time today. And so one of the biggest trade-offs has just been time, with me. Angie has done a ton of the heavy lifting when it comes to the family. I'm not proud of this, but it's just a reality, is that even when I was physically present, I might not have been, mentally present because my brain was thinking about something, for work. I think that some of that was required, but I also think that it wasn't all required, and I was addicted in a bad way to the job, and I could have done a much better job at turning my mind away from work and my mind into what was in front of me. So that one's a blessing and a curse. Certainly as we, invested into Aptive, we took the money that we earned from Altera and gave up a lifestyle because we put all of the money, into Aptive. And for a very, very long time, just because it was a new company, I didn't even take a salary, at Aptive. No one was, I'm not trying to get pity. We were just fine. We were doing well along the way, but we certainly made sacrifices on when we were able to build a home and buy certain things. So a few things that come to mind.
I remember having a negotiation with you, and you were in Disneyland, and just like, what kind of a dirtbag am I, taking time away from him? And I thought it wasn't the only call that you were having. Like, I'm sure just call after call after call, working with college kids that the day starts for them at 1 or 2 in the afternoon and goes until 11 or 12 at night.
What I will say is something that I've learned is this, though. My superpower was my ability to work really hard in really long hours. But what I've learned is that there are very few things that have to actually be done right then. And I could have done a better job. It's okay if you answer in an hour or two. It would have been probably totally fine if I didn't talk to you while I was at Disneyland. It took me some maturity, though, to figure that out. And so I don't want to paint it all as bad, because that anxiousness helped me get a lot done, but I took it too far.
I was actually with Chandler. We were sitting in a hot tub. Carlos was there too. And said, I feel like I've lost a little bit of that dog that I used to have. And someone said, well, yeah, you replaced it with wisdom. But it made me nervous of like, man, I've lost a little bit of this. People talk about the grind set mentality. Can you talk about that from your perspective?
You're just in a different season. And I think wisdom is a massive part of it. My suspicion is that your instincts have been very right. That there was a point where you used the word that dog, or that phrase, that dog, was much more required. But you're in a different season. You have more people around you. You're smarter about how you use your time and the resources that you have. And so you're probably just fine. It would be unbalanced to stay in dog mentality your whole life. Like that would, and unbalanced in a bad way. So I think you're good.
So to respond to that, yeah, that dog, I think oftentimes in my life I would have something come up and be like, okay, this is it. And then I get to the next stage and then demonize that thing that got me to that point, instead of realizing it was like, here's the old law and it served up to a certain point. here's the new law. It will serve me up to this point, and then when it stops serving me, I can express gratitude for that process or habit, mindset, graduate on to the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Vess, I have a question on that. I am right in that stage where 5 o'clock is noon for me, and I usually sacrifice a lot of those the presence with my family because I need to take this call, I need to solve this problem for this client, I need to take care of this problem internally at the company. I'm curious to hear first, if you could go back in time, would you have changed that? Or what advice do you give for someone who's in my shoes? Do I just learn that on my own, or there is certain advice that you can give me, or someone who's in my shoes right now that you were, 10 years ago?
I think that it's a tough question because all of us have a different reality around us. And so your family situation is different than my family situation. And so what worked for me may or may not work for you. I have a wife that is very, very independent. She is happy to be around me, but she also can find a lot of happiness not being around me. Our kids are healthy. They don't, require additional, extra care. And so I had a lot of those things that lined up for me that allowed me to work really, really hard and to be completely obsessed. And so I would still change things though. Like my wisdom, like what I've learned over the years is kind of what I just said a second ago, in that not everything is a fire. Not everything is as urgent as we might think it is. And really, why did I answer the phone at Disneyland? Why are you taking a call at 8 or 9 o'clock at night when the whole world is actually shut down? As hard as it is to say, it actually might be my ego. It might be your ego. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to are we serving our egos because we want to feel important? We want to feel busy. We want to feel like we've got to do it right now because we're that great. And so maybe that's a good question to ask yourself is, am I serving myself right now with this, or am I actually serving the business or somebody else? Is it really that necessary? And I'm confident and comfortable enough to say that for me, ego was in the way quite a bit.
That's an interesting take, because I never saw as that, thinking through those negotiations. I feel like a negotiation often can be won by whoever is going to outlast the other party, just whoever has the emotional discipline and faith to say, yeah, I'm going to be okay at the end of this. And I always saw it as, he's negotiating with me, but he also knows I'm negotiating with this person at this company and this person at this company. And he's going to put in the reps and the just additional mental and emotional horsepower to get through this negotiation, which if you didn't, you guys have out-recruited. Like, you guys are where you're at. You're the fourth largest, I think you're the largest door-to-door pest control company in the world. And I think a lot of it is because that's the mentality that you had, and that was the mentality that trickled down throughout the entire organization.
Yeah, so I don't want to take I don't want to take all of that away. I just want to add one step in, am I really serving what has to happen right now? Or am I just trying to feel super important and super busy, and I'm a businessman? There were certainly times where perhaps that conversation with you at Disneyland was absolutely necessary because you were making a decision that night, or you felt super emotionally tied to some other business, and I had to come and match that and exceed that. Well, that's where intelligence comes into play. You get to judge what is needed in this moment, and do that thing.
Vess, tell us what's next for Aptive. You guys just had this amazing event. You distributed $100 million. I did not know that was the number. We had talked a while ago.
Actually, more than that, but yeah.
We had talked a while ago, and I said, Vess, one of my goals is to create 50 millionaires. And you guys had more than 100 distributed, but over the course of Aptive, it would be fun to see you guys have created hundreds of millionaires.
I don't know what the number is, but we're very, very excited to continue to grow and to scale. What is next for us? We're really, really leaning into better understanding the customer journey, and not procedurally, these are the steps, but what is the equivalent of my pleasure at Chick-fil-A? Or what is the equivalent of the Four Seasons being able to so immaculately remember the way that, what you liked, or what food you ate last time you were there, or the Nordstrom return policy. What is that thing, for Aptive? And, we're on that journey. We're definitely going to continue to grow our direct to home program. But as part of that customer experience, we need to build our brand in a more meaningful way. We need to raise awareness and really double down on growing through digital. We just closed our second M&A deal actually today.
Congrats on another pest company.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And so, we're at 500 million in revenue now. Can we go to $1 billion? Now, $1 billion is just a nice round number. It's not so much of like $1 billion, but you got to have some target out there. And so we'll try to do that.
Who are the key people that you need to keep around for that?
I only want A players. So all A players I want to keep.
Can you define an A player for us?
Yeah, they are elite at their function. They are a tremendous leader. They understand the vision of the business, and they crave autonomy, and they don't have to go and be told what to do. A players see around corners. They don't live or die for tomorrow. They're trying to build for 2 years from now, from 3 years from now. But at the same time, no balls are dropping in the today, because we got to live in today, but we're working towards where are we going to be in a few years.
I asked you, I'll say one thing that you could
Sure.
keep going, Carlos. I asked a question to you. I called you, I think like 2 or maybe it was 3 years ago, and said, Vess, how do I level up as a CEO? And appreciate the mentoring. And he said, Court, like, you're probably just not lazy enough. You worded it that way. Actually, there are two things. I'm going to share the second one because the second one was super impactful for me, and I shared it a bunch of times with other people, but never on the podcast. But you say you're just not lazy enough. Like, you're doing every single task, and because you're doing every single task, it's not going to be possible for your company to grow. And the solution was surrounding myself with A players, and it's amazing. Again, one of those things that served me early on was doing every single task and knowing how to do it that was keeping me from growing and needed to be shed to get to the next level. The other thing you said that you followed up with is, I don't think you said it in this way. Maybe you did. You said you're too sensitive, or I'm trying to think exactly how you worded
Defensive.
it. Too defensive. Yes.
Defensive.
You said stop being so defensive, and then you paused for a second, and you're like, that's what I had a coach tell me. And when you first said it, like, I felt my blood boil, like, as soon as you said it, and I was like, oh, obviously I need to be less defensive.
Yeah.
But that has served me so well in providing a place where people, like, conflict's encouraged and my ideas need to be challenged. And in the combination of surrounding myself with A players was like, those are two massive ingredients to be able to scale.
And I think a better way than to say become lazy is render yourself irrelevant. And then you can really focus on vision and building the team. But when it comes to the day-to-day of the business, you're irrelevant because you have surrounded yourself with an outstanding team that are much more expert in their functions than you could ever be, because you just can't know everything about HR, finance, strategy, and so on.
The reason that was so hard for me is because my muscle of strategy and culture had not been exercised at all in the early stages. And so it was just this atrophied, dormant muscle. And I sucked so bad at it and was really good at the other stuff. So to make that pivot, that transition of like, I'm not going to do what I'm good at so that I can do what I suck at, but need to be really good at, was painful. And it was really easy to revert back to doing what I was good at.
I'm right there with you. Like we want to do what is comfortable. And I believe you said Carlos is the CEO of one of the businesses, so you've clearly done it. That's awesome.
On the way.
He's gotten really lazy. Just kidding. They're just kidding. Vess, I do have a question there on, you've talked about people twice. Once you said, at the beginning you said, having the right people gave you the confidence that you knew Aptive would be bigger than that offer that you had. And you now just mentioned that to go to the next level, Court asked you what's next. You talked about the people again. I remember when I was being recruited at Aptive, this is 5 years ago, I was just impressed with the passion that people had for the brand. And I've heard you talk about this brand legacy brand that you're trying to build, which is different from what you built at Altera and
Yes.
Echo. I'd love if you could talk a little bit what's necessary to build a legacy brand and how that impacts the culture.
That is an excellent question. And on the sales side of the business, there is a tremendous energy, and there's a tremendous brand around training and around winning and around, self-improvement and where am I headed next and leadership. We worked on that for 12 or 13 years. What's really, really fun about Aptive now is we will always hold on to that and lean into that. But now we get to really build brand from more of a consumer lens. And it starts with, you have to treat employees really, really well. I mean, they are your first customer, and we're not perfect at it, but we've dramatically tracked, employee turnover and churn. And we do engagement surveys twice a year, and we're really trying to ensure that from an employee's perspective, they are believers in us. And if they're believers in us, then we have a chance to go and build a brand where customers are believers in us. We're trying to be very data-driven to understand the consumer. So we have millions of data points just because of all of the interactions. So grabbing insights from our customers, doing market research, doing customer surveys, and just really, really trying to understand what our customers want from us so that we can give that to them, and hopefully create a tremendous brand that consumers want to be part of.
I've heard the phrase before, treat your employees well and they're going to treat your customers well. I mean, there's so many quotes around that, but you talked about that a little bit. What does that entail to treat your? You said employees are your first customer. You need to treat them really well. What does that entail? Because I feel like a lot of founders, leaders, that usually means pay more. That's usually how people interpret that, but that's not always the case. What does that entail?
So there's a hygiene level with employees that you have to meet. You need to have the right compensation, the right benefits package, the appropriate days off and holidays, but that's your baseline, right? The next level is, do I know where my career is headed? Do I feel like there is upward mobility? Do I believe in the business, in what the offering is? Do I feel like I have autonomy? Do I understand the 3 to 5 year vision? And do I actually understand what my role is in it so that I can clearly explain to my friends and family members, this is where we're going, and this is the role that I get to play, in it. And so to me, like 15 years ago, company culture was a ping pong table. Yeah, we have great company culture because there's a movie room and a ping pong table. We are so far, beyond that now. That's the fun of trying to build it.
I love it.
No problem. No, you're good.
Carlos, I have one more question, unless you have any more.
Oh man, I have like 9 more, but I will be respectful of Vess's time. You can ask now.
Cool. Before I ask this question, we'll let you have the last word, Vess. I just want to express again tons of gratitude for you, your example, how you led. You had so many opportunities to prioritize your own financial or Aptive's own financial gain over what I felt was close to a handshake agreement, and just appreciate how you acted that way. Thank you. And second, to Aptive, like what an amazing springboard. I was able to go for the first 3 years at Aspen with zero income and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into the business because of Aptive. Like, what a cool thing.
Well done to you for creating that. That took a tremendous amount of work and dedication and discipline. So, well done.
Just so much gratitude, man. Last question. Instead of sitting across from Carlos or me, you're sitting across from a former version of yourself. What version of yourself is that? What is he going through? And what do you tell him?
I say this very humbly. I wouldn't go and change a whole bunch now that I have the lens of happiness is a direction and not a destination. Because when you understand that, once again, like I said earlier, you're okay with all of the things, good or bad, that are happening around you. If my kids listen to this, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I think what I would want them to maybe hear is that perfectionism is not the aim. And I feel like I was absorbed with perfectionism for a very, very long time, which someone might say, yeah, but look at where that got you. I think you can get to really good places while giving yourself space to be okay with making mistakes and not being perfect, and actually embracing the things that that are about you that are not perfect. Being defined by perfectionism or perfect obedience or whatever, I think sometimes takes your eyes off of the aim of what this life is all about. And you get so focused on a destination or what other people think that you then have to say, well, why am I doing this thing? Is my heart in the right spot? I'm not trying to indict myself that my heart wasn't in the right spot, but there were certainly moments where it could have been in a better spot, or maybe my priorities would have been a little bit different. But society really pushes us towards perfectionism. And if you have weakness, that you are less than. The weaknesses and the differences in us is what makes us amazing and what makes us unique. And so succinctly, I would say, go for your dreams, Vess. Work really, really hard, Vess. But perfectionism is not the aim. Where your heart is the aim. Where your intentions are is the aim. Where your priorities are is the aim. And you keep all of those things in check, you can still end up in a pretty fantastic spot, I would say.
I'd love to ask two more questions, if that's okay. I'll try to be quick. I love that answer. I would also love to hear a little bit more. You have You just had a big capital event. You just closed on an M&A today. There's a lot happening. If you could call Vess 20 years from now, what do you think he would tell you today? Or what do you wish he would, what advice would he tell you today?
Well, I think he would say, you're super blessed, and so you need to show a lot of gratitude. And I think he would say, you're not that important, though. You're doing some really great things, but where is your heart? Is your heart in the right spot? And I could say most of the time it is, but you got to check yourself. So I hope he would say, like, yeah, those professional accolades are really good, but how are you treating your friends? How are you treating your wife? What's your relationship with God like right now? Are you being true there?
I love that. My last question, the name of the podcast is Elevate Utah. And I think from, all of the people we've had here, you're probably the most, or one of the, the people that have done the most for the state. Why Utah? Because your company is nationwide. Are you guys in Canada as well?
No.
Okay, nationwide. You can live anywhere you want. Why Utah?
Utah is an incredible place. Unfortunately, the secret's out. We planned this podcast at a time where hopefully I can miss the traffic home. There's traffic here now, which is super unfortunate. But, faith-based communities are an outstanding place to build and to grow and to start businesses. And so there's a really practical reason why Utah. I mean, it's just where I live. It's where the business started. But the reason why we're going to stay in Utah is it is filled with universities and faith and driven people. And so we love this. We love this community. And I think that thanks to people like Ryan Smith, who have just done amazing things for our state, like, the word's out, and maybe we need to tone it down though a little bit.
Yeah,
so
keep the secret.
Yeah.
Stop broadcasting our podcast out. Vess, thank you, man. This has been amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Really
Vess.
appreciate you both.
It's a wrap.